Captain Hoffman, will you move next? I didn't. Okay, sir, please.
Hey, thanks for your time, gentlemen. I'm David Hagel. I've been here 7 years. I'm a 76 FO. I'd like to read just a couple sentences from Richard Smith's 1 year ago investor meeting. Strategically tapping into a network of global airline partnerships and using commercial line haul, particularly on imbalanced lanes, we can connect more cost-effectively markets point to point instead of continued over-reliance on traditional hub and spoke purple tail systems. This strategy supports commercial growth while avoiding adding 50 new wide-body aircraft to our fleet in the next 10 years, which would otherwise need to fly about 30 daily frequencies that can now be flown more economically and efficiently with partner lift. So given the way the TH-23 is structured, going to credit block hours versus credit hours, do you think this opens the door for them to add wet leases through Memphis, Atlanta, Memphis, St. Louis? Right, it behooves them to do credit hours under contract 2015 because they're going from Memphis to Honolulu, which the credit hour is a block hour. Do you see this opening the door based off of his words?
Can you read the next sentence?
The next sentence. As a result, we will deploy purple tails and cruise airplanes assets towards the higher yielding, more premium segments of business that it was designed for.
Right.
Next sentence.
So the first part where you talked about the partner lift, and then it said to avoid over reliance on our hub and spoke purple tail system.
Yep.
The wet leasing that's covered in the scope clause right now, regular and historical, is all inside that hub and spoke system. So he's not talking about wet leasing. He's talking about belly freight. He's talking about trucks. He's talking about other stuff. Because that wet leasing, if it's not inside that hub and spoke system, it's not regular and historical, and it's not covered anyway under the current clause. It would be covered under the TA, but it would not be covered under the current clause. So, first of all, I dispute the fact that they're talking about the wet leasing at all. The second part is the 50 jets. How many MD-11s are we getting rid of in the next few years? The 50 jets is the MD-11s that they've gotten rid of so far and are going to. It's our 54 MD-11, I think it's 54, I'm not sure of the exact number. They don't have to buy those. They don't have to replace those. Those are the 50 airplanes that they're talking about. We already have orders for the 76 and the 777 that are on the books, so they're not counting those. So, yes, that's a scary thing for him to say. However, when we pick that apart a little bit, it's not saying what people are saying it's saying. We have an issue. I mean, it's an interpretation that you're saying that that means wet leasing, when the statement specifically says it's outside of our system.
I guess I am making an assumption that wet leasing equals partner and other airplane lift.
It's not the only kind of partner, is all I'm saying. Now, do we have issues with drive? Sure we do. It's right in the name. It's truck. The UPS-ification of FedEx. Unfortunately, there's nothing we can do in scope about trucks. We don't have enough information about belly lift or belly freight to even craft a solution for that. Belly freight opened up Nairobi, it opened up Joburg, it's brought us extra cities. It's brought us extra work and extra flying for our pilots. Do we need to limit it? Yeah, in some way, but we have to figure out how to do that. We don't even have that information. It's one of the things we tried to do in this TA. We tried to say, look, we need information about belly freight. So we went in and we told FedEx we wanted a report on it. Now they wouldn't give us that, but we did get language in there that codifies that they have to answer questions about specific belly freight. So as we go into this next contract, we can send people out and say, hey, every single pilot, every time you see any FedEx freight going on the belly, write that down, get a tail number, send it in. We can start building a database. They were scared enough about that language that we put in there that they felt like they had to add a letter to say that it's limited. This TA provides more protections for scope against the things that are actual problems for our jobs. We have to focus on the alligator closest to the boat here, right? We need to make sure that we're fighting the fight we need to fight. Scope's about jobs. We put in protections for jobs. Scope's not about a scope payment. Scope payments that the company has proven over and over again that they're just willing to pay. If you look at how they compute those payments for when they go over the limit, you can see that they don't even care. Because all they do is do all the wet leasing they want to do. And then at the end of the year, they look back and go, hey, how many net aircraft did we do? And then they pay the penalty.
Let me just add, it's a good question because it keeps coming up and it's drawn a lot of attention. But the company's continuing their modernization. They are on track to take delivery of 4 777s and 8 767s by the end of December. So those orders are on the way regardless of what Mr. Smith has to say about the 50 wide-body aircraft. But they're also, as you know, parking aircraft. They're modernizing the fleet by bringing down 8 MD-11s and 2 757s. And they're going to continue that drawdown. And the drawdown is the MD-11 fleet. But they're adjusting it not to flip it, to add in additional cost on the wet lease. They're adjusting it to adjust to the volumes and the demand. The volume is down. So they're not going to add in any extra cost right now. They're cutting everything in terms of an added cost. So it's consistent with what they've done in the past. And they would have already canceled those orders if the Smith comment was the reality that they're going to all of a sudden shelve 50 new airplanes. Arnie, I think one more. Yeah.
Hey David, Marty Harrington, Schedule Committee Chairman. Over the years, when we see these wet leases come in, it's always Memphis somewhere, longer range, either Memphis Stansted, Memphis Honolulu, Memphis to Puerto Rico is the current runs. We have 2 runs right now, Honolulu and Puerto Rico. We asked them, why Anchorage can't? Because the Anchorage guys are like, we're sick of can't. Or apply something else. And they always walk at that and say, because we need the recovery. If that airplane breaks, there's an issue with that route, they want to be Memphis and they can replace it with one of our airplanes. And so the demand for that freight, if something hiccups, and the wet leasing, the percentage of liability is not very good. And they always want the backstop to us taking over. So if they're gonna pick a route that's Newark to somewhere that's not, that we can readily pick up, in the past, they have never done that. So I don't know what they're gonna do in the future, but that has been their rationale in the past, so.
Yeah, and the final thing I would add is that at that conference, same conference, Fred Smith, not his son, said that his principal advantage over UPS was FedEx's fleet modernization program, which would, for the first time, give them a younger fleet than UPS. And it was at that same conference that Fred Smith noted, I think with some degree of satisfaction, the failure of George Post's wet leasing model in the United States.
Yeah, the last thing I'll add is that reliability factor is huge. When we talk about the FedEx global brand, they are not going to sacrifice the global brand based off the reliability of Atlas. And Atlas is probably one of the most consistent wet lease operators for FedEx, as you know. And it's consistently in here during peak because they have never and will never build the airline around the peak schedule. That's just not what they do. They build it around our average schedule. And that's efficient and it's competitive with UPS. The concern over reliability is real. Our reliability factors are laser focused day in and day out. There's a team looking at our reliability. We took a beating during COVID, but they're getting it back to our new normal. But it's about 15 to 20% reduction in reliability on Atlas, and they're the best ones out there. It drops off pretty dramatically after that. So, thank you.
I'm a second year after on Airbus. Sorry you already kind of like addressed this, but my question was about the statement about the company wants to outsource 10% flying. Is it going to be on planes? Where do you think that flying is going to come from, or is it like part of the drive initiative?
Yeah, thanks, Adam, I appreciate it. It's all in line with the driving network 2.0. So what FedEx is doing, the term has been used, UPSification of the airline. What they're attempting to do is they're trying to take the delayed or deferred freight. That means the 2 and 3 day stuff that's out there where it fills up potential space at P1. In the statement that was read earlier by David, spoke to keeping the P1 on that freight, prioritizing that freight. So the efficiencies gain that the company's looking at is, hey, where can we pull off deferred freight? And the belly freight is actually referred to by the company as dirty freight because the yield is virtually nil. They run it because of the customers that need the additional capacity. So that 10% efficiency, and I'm not sure what the coded sources on that, but I'll assume that 10% is written somewhere from FedEx. The efficiencies is between combining Express and Ground. Express has a number of ground stations that process our cans. Ground has a bunch of stations that also process all the ground. And they're trying to integrate these two systems. One of the first ones out of the gate was up at St. Paul, but it presents some real challenges for the company because our two networks really don't talk to each other just yet. So you lose that. But what they're doing is taking what they can off the airplane, leave the prioritized stuff, and really going back to their roots as an airline, which is an express company flying overnight, time definite, high priority, high yielding freight. Because the more high yielding freight we have, the better the balance sheet on this company. And when it gets combined eventually with Express and Ground reports under the single structure, we really want to magnify our yield. Because look, the more profitable this company can be, the more profitable we all will become for decades to come. So you really need the company to get this moving in the right direction pretty rapidly. But that's where they're moving the freight. They're taking the dirty freight from the bellies, they're going to move anything that's probably deferred, they're going to push it into the ground network domestically where they can make cutoffs, it'll go by truck. And that's just something we don't have any control of in the scope in section 1 at all. When a UPS customer shows up, they say, here's my package, I need it here by this date. They don't tell them if they want it on the air division or they want it on the ground division. UPS gets to decide the fastest, most efficient way to get there and still make the cutoff. Unlike the FedEx current system where a customer on the front side of that process has to tell them which way they want it to go. That will eventually disappear and be blended into one. And that's where those efficiencies will come from.
Okay, we have this gentleman at microphone number 2 up. Please go with your question.
Thank you. Omar Rashid, Indy 11, FO, 7 years, about 19 to go. My question is about the market-based cash plan and the 11%, and it really goes towards future negotiations and how much we can continue to press that number higher under IRS limits, defined contribution maximum of 20%, defined benefit currently at 11. How much higher could the company have gone, and how was it realized at 11%? You made mention about dollar for dollar. So can you explain, is that dollar for dollar leverage in the stock market or dollar for dollar for what they put in now? And what the limit is primarily for 1%?
Yeah, so the dollar for dollar, 11% on the DB side, 9% on the DC side, that's $1 into us, it's $1 benefit to us. On the defined benefit plan, it's a bit different. You know, you have mortality, you have interest rates, you have rates of return, and other things, factors that blend into it, where $1 isn't always $1. Sometimes $1 million is just to get you where your benefit is supposed to be. So there's a lot of unknowns on the legacy side. But with regard to the 11%, it wasn't a hard number. That was a fist fight, is what that was. That was bloody noses and knock out, drag out. I think I won personally. Some people say if I did a draw, I don't know. But the point is that we tried to get more than that. But what we couldn't go below was what the modeling showed. What we need to be at least equal, if not or better, because these people in this plan are going to be going out later. They need more money. We saw that, so we had to keep measuring it against what we were doing on the DB plan and where those numbers are going in negotiations. So that 11% was something we could live with. Is it something you can live with? You don't have to. There is no limit. If you want to make it 12, 13, 16, make it 17 for me if you would in the future. but it will not interfere with what you're doing on the DC side. The two are apples and oranges, and it's perfectly fine to go ahead and take that number up as high as it is. Okay, I got a caveat. Okay, here's the answer to this. There is a limit, it's a government limit that does apply to this plan, and I'm gonna use the number, it's called 415B. It's the maximum benefit that you can receive from the plan. That number also indexes up with inflation. So if you get to that number in a lump sum, they're gonna test against an annuity conversion to make sure you don't exceed that number. And so that would be the most you could roll over or keep into a qualified plan when you retire. But we have the information in the book, you're gonna get the whole benefit, everything over and above that, if you have to get real, aggressive. That will come back to you in cash. So you get the money, but yeah, you can overachieve.
Okay, now, microphone number one, sir.
Hello, Pat Martin, Triple Captain. First things, thank you guys for the work. I do appreciate that. You guys really haven't talked about any of the quote-unquote gains for the company. So I'd like two numbers from you if I could. The first one is, if this TA is passed, how many tens of billions of dollars in pension obligations will you relieve the company of? And two, with all the productivity concessions that we've accepted in this, after listening to the company's legitimate concerns and addressing them at the table, how many pilots do you calculate could be furloughed if the company takes full advantage of the new language, i.e. all the extra work and productivity that the current pilots would be expected to do?
I'm still reading the first one, Brian, give me the second one, please.
First one was how many tens of billions of dollars in pension obligations would you relieve the company of? The second is, with all the productivity concessions that we gave in this TA, if in fact it's passed, how many pilots do you calculate could be furloughed with the additional work that each pilot is expected to do now?
Okay, so, what we can do, is to first talk about potential savings that the company has with the transition. The company's own numbers, they don't even begin to have savings in this plan, at least until 17 years in when they start to see it. So, they have a long-term horizon on their return on that. But as you're transitioning the plan out, what was more obvious was that their obligation, if we didn't increase the pension, we left it at $130,000, that obligation continues to decrease in value and the company's contribution to maintain that benefit level. And at $130,000, at some point, as it continues to decrease and the PBGC premium comes up to meet it, those two will be equal to the same, and it's not worth not much more than that PBGC premium. But the savings on the other side is also offset by the market-based cash balance plan, which they put in place for us. So those two numbers start to cross over as well. So the more pilots that start coming in, when they start hiring again, the more pilots they'll be adding into their costs. When we talked about the pension funding, there's a couple different aspects of pension funding. What specific portion of the pension funding are you referring to when you say billions of dollars?
The current pension that we have, the defined benefit.
Yeah, so there's a couple, numbers that involve the pension funding. Are you talking about the normal cost, the service costs, or the pension benefit obligation?
The total dollars that the company has to, quote unquote, pay, have, account for whatever the number is.
Okay, yeah, so you look at the big picture, what's
Big picture.
Yeah, so, but it is more complicated than cash dollars. It involves cash dollars and, there's accounting costs and cash costs. So it's about 17 years before the company gets to see relief on that. As far as the productivity calculation, again, our effort was to maintain the focus on pilots and them maintain control over their destiny and what these options that are offered. I didn't think that the pilots wanted us deciding what was in their best interest on vacation. 100% buyback in a year pilot decides they have an extraordinary expense. Let's leave it up to the pilot to decide what's in the best interest of that. productivity calculations outside of the vacation, I'm not sure exactly what areas where there would be a decrease in productivity.
SMU?
Oh,
40% of the lines are gonna have to work.
Yeah, so there was, I'm glad you brought that up. At the end of the day, you know, the company brought to us a proposition that said we want all of these things. And by the way, you're paying, you know, FOs to stay home, and we're paying them. So they're paying 2 pilots to do the job of 1. It was very consistent with what they came in. And what they came in with from the beginning was extreme focus on every penny. They went after every nickel. They did not want to leave, and that's why they fought so long and hard over just per diem. What we did is we ended up, you know, crafting a solution that we don't believe allows them to be any more in jeopardy of furloughing a pilot. The 40% number is a very limited number, and they still have to continue to bump pilots. All the captains that are going to get bumped will still be bumped 100%, and then you add ad hoc training and whatever the 40% doesn't cover, so they're still going to do that. I don't think that calculation based on potential furloughs. I think what I would be concerned about right now is the lack of volume and lack of business right now that could drive us into a furlough, not so much potential loss from the
But you do
60%.
agree it will be deeper with the extra work that each of the pilots are gonna do, correct?
No, I don't. I think that the pilots are gonna continue to choose what's in their best interest. I don't think that us deciding if the pilot wants to bid that line or not, has anything to do with a calculation of productivity. I think it's an entirely different topic.
Okay. We'll agree to disagree on that.
Okay.
Start with the next topic.